part of that is to, like you said, intentionally to destroy those structures, because I think for the new order to arise, they believe they have to intentionally destroy everything that came before. So they're doing it within, I mean, I think right now they're doing it in this country. They're intentionally like trying to shut down and cause a sort of controlled chaos. And I think they do the exact same thing in the religions as well. They infiltrate, co-opt, shut them down, or steer them into some kind of like fake global world religion.
Position them in places, whether it's the medical industrial complex or the news or anything like that. You're
And
totally right.
they also compromise like high level religious leaders too. Like they'll get, so people sleeping with whoever, and then they've got dirt um, on, I mean, that's happened with numerous Catholic bishops. Like they've been caught. A lot of that stuff that you talked about, like the pedo stuff, that's compromising these important people. That's a big part of that.
Blackmail for sure. I think that is a big, big, big part. So as we go through this kind of chaos that we see going on right now in the world, how has your faith helped you kind of steer the ship in these rocky waters? And how, for me, I'm a spiritual man. I don't really have an organized religion point of view, but I'm open-minded to everybody and support everybody's view. When I think of people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and all these guys, I start to think like, these guys are such powerful human beings, but that's really what they are, human beings. Maybe they're even demon human beings, but for me, they're not bigger than the universe and what the universal laws could be. And people believe in different universal laws depending on their faith. What is through your, the prism in which you see the world, how have the last, couple of years, affected you and your views and where we are and where we're going? What are your whole take on all that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know if it's the end of the world or the last days or anything like that. I mean, it could be, but I definitely think the excess amounts of just open, straight up satanic evil and wickedness, for me, it hammers home the fact that there's real spiritual evil. And if there's real spiritual evil, then it stands to reason that there's real spiritual good. So for me, it's a confirmation that the best worldview that has explanatory power for the world that we live in has to be something that can give an account for good and evil, for spiritual warfare, for the fact that, I mean, the world seems to be run by extremely wicked people. You see a continuity of this plan, not just over the last 100 years, but over millennia. And I don't think that just human power and, collusion could explain that. I think it requires a deeper explanation. I think that Orthodox Christianity's view of Satan, its view of the fall of Satan, of the fall of man, eschatology being the end times, or how the world will progress towards these kinds of confrontations between good and evil. For me, it's the best explanation. So that's another powerful attestation to its veracity, I think. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
No, it does make sense. For me, my question is, do you think that these people are born evil? Do they make decisions to go into the darkness and for
I don't think anybody's born evil. Like we would say that man, just as man himself, is good. And for us, our account of evil, we think evil is kind of like a there's two senses to evil. There's evil that's a privation. Like if I lack eyesight, right? Like that's an evil. It's a bad in a way, because obviously I don't have two eyes, but it's not morally evil to lack eyesight, right? If somebody just gouged out my eyes, it's not my fault per se. But if I, go and rape somebody or something like that, that's a morally evil action. And for us, I'm not inherently evil, but doing evil things is a moral thing, not a metaphysical thing, if that makes sense. So there's no such thing. We're not like dualists where we think that like matter is evil, like Gnostics think, or like humans are evil in themselves. The only thing that evil is a kind of action that's against the good. That's it. So no, humans aren't inherently evil, but they can definitely make choices. So we make a big point to stress free will in our view.
When we can see it all the time. Gurus of spirituality, religious figures who kind of lead their flock astray. Um, what is your whole take on a lot of these people and these televangelists who say they speak for God and stuff like that and what they do? What's your whole view of that situation?
I think it's an atheism factory. I mean, I think that's the biggest argument against Christianity or God's existence is that kind of stuff. So I think that is the kind of stuff that puts doubts in everybody's mind, right? Like there's a bunch of con men. In fact, I'm reading a book by Herman Melville called Competence Man. And the whole book is just about a bunch of con men on a steamboat. And kind of the plot of the book is basically that all of the con men are basically just the devil in different disguises. It's the way that, ultimately all con men are of their father, the devil, more or less.
So when I first started doing comedy, I was started in about when I was 22 years old. So I started in 94 and about 5 years in, I'd say around like 98, 99, I'd say, or yeah, we'll say 97 to 99 in that area. I would drive from Las Vegas to LA to do this open mic at the Laugh Factory. It was the most amazing open mic. It was like you would play to a full comedy crowd that came there to see open micers. So it was very huge. And you got to feel like you were making moves in Hollywood, right? So we go there, and this guy, James, was a very smart businessman. He would create this thing where they would see people staying in line overnight to get on the list, and it would create buzz, and people would talk, hey, what do you guys do? Oh, we're waiting in line to do stand up and be on this list. And so people would show up at like 3 a.m. to wait in line to sign up at 9 a.m.
Wow.
for the guest list, right? But inevitably, well, one of the rules Jamie did was also to act like he didn't want this to happen, is he would say, there's no waiting in line. You can't wait in line to sign up. But of course, nobody listened to that except for a couple people. There would always be one or two persons, comics, who would show up and they would be like, there's no line, there's no rules. And you would see people calling the club, snitching on people, causing fights, all this thing. Universally, Jay, universally, I mean, 100%, those people were never funny. And those people always bombed, always bombed, always bombed. And I always go, that's a sign, that's a sign. And, man, I was raised very paranoid by my father was very paranoid. He made my mother paranoid, always feeling like he was getting disrespected. And I used to feel that when I was in comedy. And that's why I kind of ended up getting in drugs and alcohol, because I was kind of trying to numb the pain of feeling like I was being disrespected. And through this kind of spiritual journey that I've been on the last couple of days, I was talking about this the other day on a recovery meeting I was in. I used to tour with a guy named Sebastian Maniscalco, who is a really huge comic right now. And I couldn't be happier for the guy. I mean, I couldn't be happier. I watched this guy when he was really young leave his job waiting tables on his break to run and do stand up at the Comedy Store and run back. And he just played like Madison Square Garden. I just played Float Fest, where I was basically doing a farm. And I was so happy doing it. And I was like, generally, for the first time in my life, I could tell you, I was super happy for him. And when I had this thought, I waited for what normally would be this kind of wave of negativity to somewhat go, well, he got this because of that. And through this real hard work that I've been doing spiritually, in a lot of different areas, a lot of part of my psyche and my soul and physically, it didn't come. It was very weird. I was waiting for this negative kind of like thing to come over me to be, oh well, he got that because I was so surprised when it never showed up. And in general, I was like, wow, I'm actually really happy for this guy. Because normally I'd be like, bah, and it never came. And like for me, like if anyone's listening to this that kind of plays that game, the negative nanny, like the rap war shit doesn't lead to anywhere. Doesn't lead to anywhere. Never leads to anywhere.